with Andy Rouse. Sopa's really tried. You see the way the rear end stepped out there? Now, Andy Rouse has got an experimental engine with higher turbo boost. It's giving him more power. He's going into Pilgrim's Drop at about 135 miles an hour and he gets back into the lead.
Right, so today we've come to CNC Motorsport AWS and we are with Mr. AWS, Alan Strachan. Thank you very much for having us.
Pleasure.
Talk us through what you do here, because obviously we're sat next to this wonderful old touring car. What do you do here? What is it that are you specialists in these? Are you specialists? What do you do?
We manufacture out of production parts, bits that are no longer available or that need slight modifications to make them slightly better from point, not really performance, but they last longer. All the components that go on race cars need to be as they were in period. That's more like off-the-shelf things where somebody wants a brake kit for a car or a vehicle for the road or something like that, or a more modern race car. We pretty much do everything apart from anodizing and painting.
Really? Okay. So if something, obviously a homologated car that, so a customer comes to you and they need the parts changing or not changing but remaking, can you do that here as well?
Yeah,
as it was specified back in period?
Yeah, I mean basically we take original components, hopefully if they've still got them in one piece, and try and encourage people over the winter when they've got their car in bits, at least make a fag packet sketch with some rough dimensions on. Yeah. So you got an idea of what it looks like, because don't bring something to me that's a big crumpled mess and go, can I have another one of these please? Because first of all I need to know what it used to look like, and then I can smash it up and make it look like your broken one. So it's really important that, if you've got an original component, and some of the cars, some of the bits are really quite rare, and certainly with the later sort of touring cars, the 90s era touring cars, they were all very aerospace, F1 kind of technology and ideas and thinkings about things, and very intricate and very expensive to make. We only have to talk about budgets that used to be around in those days. The earlier cars, not quite so complicated, but even so are still relatively complicated. And the bits that are available for them, yeah, there are some original bits still kicking around that are usable and serviceable. The big problem is with, some of the stuff is that there's a reason why it's sat in a box in spares, is because it's not really suitable to be used anymore. But if we've got an original component where you can sit down, and we've got several ways to do it, good old-fashioned, ruler and vernier, just in very basic terms, or we'll, stick it in the mill and we can probe it out and pick up points and things, and then just reverse engineer it and then draw it up as a 3D model, and then you can produce your 2D drawings if you need them from that. With the advent of CAD/CAM, you've got the benefit now that you don't really need a 2D drawing. The 2D drawing really is only there for once you've made the bit to check the dimensions to. Okay. So you don't. It used to be a day years ago you'd have a drawing office, and the guy would come up with a design. And most drawing offices, old school drawing offices, they'd have a design room, then they'd have a drawing office, and then they'd have the print room and so on, and then the checkers and all those kind of. And as with everything in modern life, it's all kind of condensed into one thing, and you do all of that yourself. So when you're reverse engineering things, you can make mistakes on measuring things. You can make mistakes when you program into machine something, whereas before that still happened, but there was a whole team behind it making it happen. And now, because of the cost of labour and all the rest of it, that's all sort of become condensed. And it's quite fortunate now that you could, with CAD/CAM, you can sit down, measure something up, model it up, use that model to program for your CNC machine, and stick the file into your CNC machine, and hope you've got all your parameters and in the right place and produce a part.
How much of a marketplace is there for, what race series is there for these sort of cars?
There's lots of race series, and cars only become fashionable and popular and people want parts for them when there's somewhere to race them.
Yeah, okay.
You know, for years, like the Group A cars and a little bit before that, the Group 1 cars and things, it kind of, historic motorsport, if we go back probably, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Seems to be becoming a bigger thing, historic motorsport.
Historic motorsport was, it kind of, especially for saloon cars, it kind of used to be that it got to 1966 and nothing after that existed and wasn't considered as historic.
Yeah.
So there weren't any historic events putting on races for more modern cars. I mean, there were a few later cars, but especially for saloon cars, it was like 66 seemed to be about the kind of cut-off. Then people started realising, hang on a minute, there's some great racing cars sitting around in sheds.
Yeah.
And thankfully, some of the series organisers thought, well, if we can
get a group of them together,
build it, they will come. You know, to coin a phrase, some of them took the plunge and put on series and said, right, we're going to run a series next year for Group A cars or Group 1 cars, or you know, things like Goodwood with the Group 1 cars.
Yeah, of course.
That helped raise the profile of all of it. But as soon as you've got somewhere to race them, then people go, yeah, you're right, they are. I remember them when I was a kid. And that's the other thing about historic motorsport. It is generational.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who was born in the 80s can remember the 90s touring car.
Yeah.
He's possibly not, or she.
Yeah.
He's possibly not going to be interested in a 1949 Allard or something, you know, or a Jaguar D-Type. Great cars, wonderful cars. We've looked after several, but and still do. But you know, it's a generational thing. And some people will, you know, my dad owns this car. It's my dad's car. Mm-hmm. I want to keep this car. So the younger generations will still have an interest in all those older cars, because those older cars have got such history and so many stories to tell. But it moves on. You know, as soon as there's somewhere to race it, people go, I remember them. Mm-hmm. And now they're in a position where they go, well, I'll buy one of those.
With everything turning electric and all of that kind of stuff as well, I think this is going to become even bigger, you know, part of
electric
everything.
Cars are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
They're great.
Yeah. Because
they're not using petrol that we can save for going racing.
Now, you don't only do sort of old touring cars and things like that. You do other race cars and other, you know, you've got behind the camera there's a Rover being restored. You do other bits and bobs like that as well?
No, we do pretty much a broad spectrum of anything, really.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't want to pigeonhole you as a fast forward person. That's all.
No, we do all different kinds of marks of car, and you know, I've had conversation with customers over the years of, you know, have you worked on one of these? And you know, the simple answer is, it's a car. The basic fundamentals of a car haven't changed since they were invented 100 and something years ago.
Yeah. Okay, tell me your story. Where did you start? How, you know, has it started from a love of cars? Did it come from your father? Did it come, you know, where did it start for you?
Don't really know where the love of cars came from. When I was a kid, I was always fascinated about taking things apart and figuring out what made them work. Yeah. And occasionally getting to put them back together again, and they still work. So that was always a bonus. My grandfather was in the Second World War and was part of the vehicle maintenance side. He was one of the first to land on D-Day.
Okay.
And one of the first vehicles, his role was to keep all the vehicles on the beach moving. And one of the first vehicles he had to fix was his own truck. And I've kind of thought, I've worked in some high pressure environments where a car's broken and it's got to be fixed.
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
That's a high pressure environment. So I guess a little bit from that. And my dad was eventually went into the fire service, but was an engineer, Rolls-Royce engineer. So
engineering's been in your blood,
been in
really.
The blood a little bit, yeah. And
you carried it on to your boy as well, obviously, who works here.
Yeah, you know, Andrew's great because he's just grown up with it. You know, it
must be like second nature to him.
I mean, he used to come to work with me when he was 18 months old.
Really? God.
So it's something that just gets under your skin.
Yeah, fair enough.
And the motorsport side of it, it becomes way of life almost.
I was going to say, so did you start in the motorsport side of things, or where did you start?
I did my apprenticeship at an Austin Rover dealership.
Really?
And even back then got to the point where I thought, this is really getting pretty mundane. We're taking bits off and we're putting bits on. We very rarely got to properly fix a car.
Yeah.
And then fortunately got a position at a Ferrari garage. A really good friend of mine was there. We used to do some motorsport stuff in the Maranello Challenge and that kind of stuff, and old Formula One cars even back then. So that was kind of a insight into motorsport, and the motorsport side of it really kind of grew from there. A few years ago, we'd been to several races, and we were looking after some customers' cars that weren't the fastest cars in the world, but you know that was just their natural pace. They weren't quick cars. They're of that era where that was a reasonable pace for a racing car. And we went to Le Mans. Jeez, how long is a lap of Le Mans? And you're going, it's been 3 minutes.
Yeah, where is it?
No, it's only been 3 minutes. Hang on a minute, it's a big track.
Yeah.
And a lap time that is 7 minutes long is
It's painful.
It's excruciating.
You go, oh, there it goes. Thank God for that.
Jesus Christ, where is it? You're like, it must be coming round soon. And then you go there a couple of years later with a Jaguar D-Type, and it's doing it in what, 4 minutes something, or 5 minutes, and it's like, even that seems like a long time. And we're talking about an exceptional track, a very long circuit. And then you go somewhere and you put a car out on the North Lash, and you go, no, that's a long lap. That lap's so long, it's got 4 villages in the infield. So the whole sort of concept of going motor racing is you're on edge. I mean, I love it. You know, there's nothing better than seeing a car that you look after and that you've worked on win. You know, that's the whole reason for going. But it's not a case of let's jump up and down and, you know, it's banners and poppers and, you know, it's good, you know, give the guys a pat on the back and credit, and the drivers congratulate them for bringing the car home, not crashing it, keeping it on the black stuff, you know, because all of those things can go wrong. And like we say, it's a team sport.
There
People
are so
don't
many
realise
variables.
And that's before you even think about the beast of a car that's designed to try and do what it's supposed to be doing, and all it wants to do really is take itself to bits if you give it half a chance. The thing that's kind of more difficult with historic motorsport is that these guys are doing it for fun. We haven't got a big sponsor piling loads of money in it, and we can go, well, we'll junk that.
Yeah, we'll just do a whole new front end of this, whatever.
That's £1,000 worth component that we'll just throw it away. And we'll put another one on there. You've got to know that when you're asking a customer to spend some money, that you're doing it for all the right reasons. And the fundamental one is not winning races. That's not the reason to change all these bits. The reason to change bits and be careful about things, really, first and foremost, is to make sure that everybody's safe.
100%. Okay, so going back a little bit to, so you were at a Ferrari specialist, you did a load of racing with them. How did you then get, you know, because there's always a moment in time where you then start a business. So what, you know, where did that sort of leap come from?
I don't think it was ever really, there was no big game plan to be some all-encompassing business. Not that I think we ever will be. You know, we all strive to be better than what we were. It was just more by accident. I was helping out. I'd finished working in what I call professional motorsport, i.e. sponsored motorsport for manufacturers and all the rest of it, in the mid-90s. And was helping out, doing various bits and things. I'd gone back to college and learnt various different new skills. I'm quite keen on learning new things, and did engineering courses and all sorts of stuff. So I was doing more freelance design work. And that was taking up more and more of my time and as a freelancer. So I was kind of just quite happy on my own thing, going to a company and doing some design work for them, or some drafting work or that kind of thing, working on various But I was helping out the Ferrari specialists
Yep.
because they were struggling a little bit with some Formula One cars that they were looking after. So I'd do a couple of days for them, and I'd go and help attend race meetings with that customer's car.
Was that a historic Formula One car?
Yeah,
at the
historic
time?
Formula One in what was then called TGP.
Okay.
And that was great. You know, it was really good fun because the weekends away were just for the sheer hell of it kind of thing. There were no expectations to win the World Championship.
Yeah.
And it was really good fun. The atmosphere, the people within the industry.
And the other cars on the grid, everything must have been
fantastic
so
cars. You know, 1970s Formula One cars. It's so iconic. And going to a circuit that I remember my granddad taking me to see Jackie Stewart's championship winning Formula One car, his Tyrrell, in Glasgow Motor Museum when I was about 3 or 4, something like that, I don't know, but wee tot of a lad. And then going to a racetrack and somebody's racing that car now, and you go, holy.
Unbelievable.
Just so you're going to go.
The noise must just have filled the air.
It's just
incredible.
They're just incredible cars, and so iconic. And again, it's a bit like that generational thing. You go, I remember watching them when I was a kid on TV. You look at some of them nowadays, and you go, yeah, that's potentially just an aluminium coffin. Such iconic cars. So it was a fantastic time, and one of the guys that was looking after one of the Formula One cars asked me to take his car and look after it full time. We still do enjoy going racing, and obviously that's been curtailed quite significantly over the last year or so.
Yeah.
But it's not the whole part of our business package now. It's still something we're very passionate about and very much enjoy. But the whole industry's just grown in such a different way as well.
Steve Soper takes the lead and brands from Andy Rouse. Now, is Steve on his way? He's got to break away from Rouse, and Rouse has got more power. Remember, he goes back. Andy Rouse retakes the lead at Surtees.
Where do you see it now going in future? So what do you want to carry on doing? Do you want to just carry on keeping it like this and running people's lovely, wonderful race cars, or doing some more restorations?
That's a difficult one because in previous years it kind of ebbed and flowed from one side to the other. One year you'd be really mad busy with people wanting to go racing and race cars and all the rest of it, and you'd have a couple of restoration jobs ongoing. And then you go a couple of years and there'd be loads of things wanting to be restored, and that was kind of and not so many people going racing. The historic race cars, they obviously go up in value when there's somewhere to go and race them, and the better the place you can get to go and race them, it helps the value. People want to get an invite to Goodwood, to the members meeting.
100%.
So cars that get an invite to the members meeting command a premium.
Piece of paper.
They command a bit of a premium. And that kind of drives it a little bit. That you could say falsifies the value, but I don't think it does. Because
isn't it amazing that they've got the pull to be able to,
but
the Earl or whatever he is now sends a letter and the car goes up in value.
Yeah, equally so you've got things like, Classic Le Mans.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to try and race a car at Le Mans?
Classic Spa, all of those ones.
You've got a car that's eligible for that, so that drives the value of them. So if there's somewhere to use them that is
And that is
niche.
a very wealthy man's game, that sort of end of the spectrum. So at all times, those people are always going to be vying for the coolest cars, trying to get involved with those, racing at those events, surely. So that then, will drive the value of these cars forever, in theory, as long as they're allowed to race.
There are obviously an element of, there are people out there that own cars that they bought them when nobody else was interested in them because they were passionate about them, and they still own them.
Yeah, look at Nick Mason. He bought his 250 GTO for 35 grand.
Yeah, it's. I've been fortunate enough to work on that car as well, but
Really? Wow.
it's. I don't think you should ever buy anything with the view of making money.
This is the thing. I don't think if you genuinely have that passion and accidentally you make a little bit of money off it,
cool.
if you sold it, great.
Happy days.
But that's exactly. It wouldn't have mattered. The way I look at it is, if I went to buy one of these now and I lost 20 grand in it, it wouldn't matter, because that 20 grand was probably the fun that I had. That was how I, in my mind,
we've had customers that have bought cars on recommendation from us. They've done 5 or 6 years really hard racing, invested a lot of money in all the right bits and pieces, correct bits and pieces, but all the right bits and pieces, and doing all, a lot of expense going to all of the races all round throughout Europe and stuff, and sold the car, and that 5 or 6 years racing hasn't cost them a penny.
Yeah. What a way of doing it.
That
genius
in reality, they've got their money back plus some. So it's, and you're very fortunate if you do that, and if it works, then great. I'm happy for you. It's just like you go, well, I recommended a customer buy a car for. This is the car you ought to buy. You want to spend that much money, you've got choice of that one there or this one there. I think this one, it ticks all the boxes for you. So they go for it and they make a load of money when they sell it. Great.
Yeah. Fantastic. But they use you to keep it running, so it doesn't matter. It's exactly.
Just, for this moment in time, we own them. Yeah. But we are only custodians of history.
Yeah.
When we look after these cars, when we take control of and care of them, we owe it to the car and to all that history that's gone before to keep them as close as possible to the way they should be. Yeah. Because otherwise you end up with a car with loads of little bits being changed on it, and it's just not.
It becomes like Trigger's broom.
Excuse me. Yeah, exactly. It's not fair to the car, and the parts that you might be putting on it might not fundamentally make it any more competitive, or faster, or any prettier or whatever. But they're not right.
They're not
for
right
that car.
Period. Yeah.
They're not right for that period, and you need to. And I'm quite passionate about the fact that we need to try and even if you're changing the most slightest thing, you're making something adjustable that wasn't adjustable in period. Yeah. One, it's not legal historically.
Yeah.
But two, it just wasn't like that.
Absolutely.
Don't mess with. And you go, well, it handles crap. Well, it handled crap in the day.
Exactly.
It's not going to get any better.
You bought one of these, yeah.
Tell you what we'll do, we'll stick it under cover in the back of the workshop, and we'll cover it up for 2 years, see if it matures a little bit and it comes out a little bit more
like a good wine.
It's you buy and lots of people buy them and want to make them better, faster, and all the rest of it. And we can look at analysing kind of how are we working the dampers nowadays? Are we, did we really have the spring rates and the dampers right? And
exactly. So you can tweak things that were still in period.
Legally, you were only allowed to move them a certain amount from where they were when they were homologated, especially when talking about touring cars and things. Yeah. So you've got a window that you can work in, and you're still within your parameters to go, well, maybe we ought to try that. We tried it once in period, but the tyre's a little bit different now, so maybe it might, we changed the roll centre a little bit, or we changed the squat or the anti-dive in the car, and that kind of stuff. We can work around these things, a little bit more camber, a little bit less camber, more caster. Try all these things. Yeah. And I'm quite passionate about if a customer wants to go testing. Yeah. Let's go test something. Yeah. Let's not just go there and wear the car out.
Let's go and try that thing, do a couple of laps.
Let's try a few things, because you want to get better. And the other thing is that, I don't know, working on an RS500 in period, we were setting the car up for how Tim Harvey drove, or Lawrence Bristow, or Sean Walker, and Andy Rouse, and how those guys drive. And Andy would go, this is the way it's got to be, and that's it. He'd engineer his own car, and he'd tell you what you want to change, and it would be a nightmare coming down the pit lane on the radio. It would be go +4 on this and half a click on that, and softer on that, and you'd be going, what did he do? Right, okay. But we were engineered. The cars were being engineered for those drivers. They've got fundamentals of a car, and that's kind of a base setup.
What suits their way of driving.
But you've got each individual car, and you've got each individual driver, and so that now transpires with guys jumping in historic cars.
Owners,
the owners own these cars, or girls. It's not specifically male orientated, which is quite good. But you can work around the person that's driving that car at the given time. You know, you can work it. They might prefer it a little bit. They don't like oversteer. It scares the living daylights out of them. So you can make the car tend to understeer more. Or but there's so many variables. You know, you can just.
And do you get to go out in them much?
Occasionally, yeah. Most of them are a lot faster than I am.
Really?
The cars are certainly a lot faster than I am.
Well, thank you so much for having us here today. It was an absolute honour to meet you and also to look around some of your absolutely wonderful machines. But yeah, check out these guys. I'm sure if you've got website and things like that, you can go and have a look. You're in loads of magazines and stuff.
Magazines. I think there's a website under construction, as they always are.
Yeah.
I seem to. But yeah, no, I'm sure if you look hard enough, you'll find us.
Wicked. Thank you so much for having us. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
He's so slow through the corners. I'll give him a touch. There we are. That's a love touch to remind him I'm here. I'm going to have a go. I've got to get past him. If he chops me this time, I'm off. Yay!
Nice one, Mike. Up to 9th position at 30s. And that's Dennis Leach in the big Rover. He's about to be lapped by Soper there in 2nd position and Rouse ahead of him. The big red and black 3.5 litre V8